A $38,938 car will take $393,482 out of your life. Both numbers are real. Only one of them is printed anywhere. The Bureau of Labor Statistics measured what American households actually spent in 2024. Transportation came to $13,318 a year. That is 17% of everything a household spends. Only housing takes more. You will make this decision again in about 5 years. Most people run the math on the monthly payment and stop there. The monthly payment is the smallest question on that desk. Nobody across that desk is paid to show you the other 4. This is after cost. Every object has 2 prices. The one on the label and the one that shows up afterward. Today the object is a new car, and that price has 5 layers. Before the end I will hand you one figure that replaces the sticker price. It is not a dollar amount. It is a multiple, and it comes out of a study running since 1950. If you have ever sat at a dealer desk while paperwork slid toward you faster than you could read it, subscribe. That feeling was not a personal failing. It was a design. Layer 1 is the sticker. This is the only number most people ever look at. AAA publishes a study every year called Your Driving Costs. For the 2025 edition, AAA took the 5 best-selling models in each of 9 vehicle categories. The sales-weighted average manufacturer suggested retail price of that basket was $38,938. Sales-weighted means the popular cars count more than the rare ones. So $38,938 is close to the sticker on an ordinary American new car. There is a second number that disagrees. Cox Automotive publishes the Kelley Blue Book transaction price report every month. In June 2026, the average price actually paid for a new vehicle was $49,758. That is almost $11,000 above the AAA basket. Both numbers are correct. They measure different things. AAA is looking at the cars ordinary buyers choose most often. Kelley Blue Book is looking at every new vehicle sold, luxury included, and luxury drags the average upward. I am going to use the AAA figure of $38,938 for the rest of this. Every cost I am about to show you is measured on that same basket of cars. Taking a cost from one study and a price from another is how people end up with numbers that sound enormous and mean nothing. So the sticker is $38,938. That is layer 1 of 5. Layer 2 is entry. Entry is everything you pay to turn money into a car sitting in your driveway. It is not the price of the car. It is the price of the transaction. Start with the government. AAA measures a category called license, registration, and taxes. It covers all government taxes and fees due at the time of purchase, plus the annual fees to keep the car legally on the road. The national average is $813 a year. Across 5 years that is $4,065. You never see it as one bill. It arrives in pieces at the desk and then in the mail every year for as long as you own the thing. Now the other half of entry. Almost nobody pays cash. Experian is a listed company that tracks auto lending and publishes a report every quarter. In the first quarter of 2026, the average loan on a new vehicle was $43,925. The average term was 69.48 months. The average monthly payment was $770. Look at that term again. 69.48 months is 5 years and 9 months. Experian also found that 35.55% of new vehicle loans now run longer than 6 years. A year earlier it was 30.83%. More than a third of new car buyers are signing debt that outlives the factory warranty. The reason is not complicated. A longer loan makes the monthly number smaller. It does not make the car cheaper. It makes the car more expensive and easier to swallow. AAA models a 5-year loan, 15% down, at the national average rate. On that model, the finance charge is $1,131 a year. Across 5 years, $5,655. Add the government side in layer 2 comes to $9,720. That is a quarter of the sticker price paid for nothing that moves. No steel, no engine, no seats. Paperwork and interest. That is layer 2 of 5. Layer 3 is carry. Carry is what the car takes from you every month simply for continuing to exist. This is the layer people underestimate hardest. Insurance first. AAA prices a full coverage policy for a driver under 65 with 6 years of experience and no accidents. The national average is $1,694 a year. Across 5 years, $8,470. That is the cheap version of insurance, not the typical one. Fuel next. AAA measures fuel at 13 cents per mile. Across 75,000 miles, that is $9,750. That figure rests on gasoline averaging $3.15 a gallon. The 12-month average ending May 2025. That number has already moved. The United States Energy Information Administration publishes retail gasoline prices every week. In data released on August 4, 2026, regular gasoline averaged $2.81 in January. By May it reached $4.48. Across the first 7 months of 2026, the average was $3.70 a gallon. That is 17.5% above the price AAA built its fuel number on. I am keeping the AAA figure anyway. It makes my total smaller. I would rather hand you a floor than a ceiling. Maintenance last. AAA charges 11.04 cents per mile. That covers routine service where item repairs, one set of tires, and an extended warranty. Across 75,000 miles, that is $8,280. This is the number people wave away because they picture oil changes. Oil changes are the cheapest item in that category. Add the three together. Insurance, fuel, and maintenance come to $26,500 across 5 years. That is more than 2/3 of the sticker price spent keeping a car you already bought. And you spend it whether the car moves or not. Insurance does not pause when you work from home. That is layer 3 of 5. Layer 4 is exit. Exit is what happened to the money you handed over on day 1. The word for it is depreciation. Depreciation is the value the car quietly loses while you own it. It is not a bill. Nobody mails it to you. You meet it exactly once on the day you try to sell. AAA measures depreciation as the gap between what you paid and the estimated trade-in value after 5 years and 75,000 miles. For 2025, that gap ran $4,334 a year. Across 5 years, $21,670. Take the sticker of $38,938 and subtract 21670. What survives is $17,268. That is roughly what the car hands back at the end. Now run the whole thing as cash moving through your account. You put in $38,938 for the car. You put in $9720 for entry. You put in $26,500 for carry. Total cash out across 5 years, $75,158. You get $17,268 back. Net cost, $57,890. Sit with the 75158 figure. That is 1.93 times the sticker. You were quoted $38,938. You will push nearly double that through your bank account before the car leaves your life. One more thing about this layer. Depreciation is front-loaded. It bites hardest in the early years and flattens later. The 5-year window AAA models is the most expensive window a car has. S&P Global Mobility measures the average age of light vehicles on American roads. In its 2025 analysis, that average was 12.8 years. Americans do not keep cars for 5 years. They keep them for a very long time. That is layer 4 of 5. Layer 5 is opportunity. Opportunity cost is the plain idea that a dollar spent in one place cannot be spent in another. It is the only layer with no invoice, no due date, and no reminder. It is also the biggest one by a wide margin. Here are my assumptions out loud before the number arrives. 7% real return per year. Real means after inflation has been taken out. A 30-year horizon. National averages, not your state. This is illustrative arithmetic, not a forecast. Now the model. Consider a hypothetical buyer. I will call her Mara, and she is not a real person. Mara pays cash, so she never pays a finance charge at all. In year 0, she spends $38,938 on the car. In years 1 through 5, she spends $6,113 a year on registration, taxes, insurance, fuel, and maintenance. At year 5, she collects $17,268, and puts that into the market too. Now picture the version of Mara who never bought the car and invested every one of those dollars instead at 7% real. By year 5, that pile is worth $72,506. She leaves it alone for the next 25 years. At year 30, it stands at $393,482. Read that against the window sticker. $38,938 on the glass. $393,482 at year 30. The foregone growth on its own, the pure opportunity layer, is $341,247. That single layer is almost 9 times the size of the car. There is a shortcut for feeling this without a spreadsheet. Every $1 of fixed monthly spending needs roughly $300 of capital behind it to run forever. AAA puts the all-in cost of a new car at $11,577 a year. That is $965 a month. 965 times 300 is about $289,500. That is the size of the fund a person would need parked somewhere permanently to pay for a new car habit without ever touching the principal. For scale, the Federal Reserve Survey of Consumer Finances put median American family net worth at $192,900 in 2022. The permanent fund the car quietly demands is larger than the entire net worth of the median household. That is not a moral failing on anyone. That is what the arithmetic says about how the country is built. That is layer 5 of 5. Now the part where I argue against myself. The strongest objection here is behavioral. AAA models of 5-year hold in 75,000 miles. S&P Global Mobility puts the average light vehicle on American roads at 12.8 years old. Depreciation is the single largest line in this study, $21,670 across 5 years, and it is front-loaded. Hold at 12 years and that loss spreads over more than twice the time. So I picked the most expensive ownership window that exists and then measured it. Someone who keeps a car until it dies is running different numbers than these. Second objection. My headline rests on a guess. 7% real per year for 30 years is an assumption, not a fact. At 5% real, the multiple drops to 5.76. 2 percentage points erase nearly half of my headline. Third objection, the one I like least. The opportunity layer assumes that without the car you invested every dollar. Nobody does. You would buy a cheaper car or pay for rides or rent closer to work. I subtracted none. And the car produces income for most people because it is how they reach work. $393,482 is a gross figure, not a net loss. A disclaimer spoken out loud rather than buried in a description box. I am not a financial advisor and this is not financial advice. Every projection uses a 7% real annual return across 30 years. That is an assumption, not a promise. Your state and your insurer will move every one of these figures. Run your own arithmetic with your own numbers. I owe you a number. At the start I said I would hand you one figure that replaces the sticker price, and that it would not be a dollar amount. The after-cost multiple for a new car is 10.11. That is $393,482 divided by the $38,938 sticker. 10 times. And that is the cheap version because Mara paid cash. Run the same model with a loan on AAA assumptions and the multiple is 11.01. The study behind those inputs has been published every year since 1950, which means this was measurable the entire time. None of it hidden, just never printed next to the price. One more detail from the 2025 edition. The annual cost of owning a new car actually fell that year, by $719. The cost went down and the multiple was still 10. So if you have ever walked out of a dealership believing you got a fair deal and still felt uneasy for a week afterward, you were not being irrational. You were doing arithmetic without the numbers. The numbers exist. They sit in a AAA study, an Experian quarterly, and a federal price series. None of those 3 documents are on the desk when you sign. That is a distribution problem, not a discipline problem. Here is a calculation you can run right now. Find how many miles you drove last year. AAA puts the all-in cost of a new car at 77 cents per mile at 15,000 miles a year. Multiply your miles by 0.77. That is roughly what 1 year of driving costs you. Now multiply that number by 31. 31 is what 5 years of that spending turns into by year 30 at 7% real. So 15,000 miles gives about $11,550 a year, and about $360,000 at year 30. Put both numbers in the comments, the yearly one and the 30-year one. I read them. Here is the question I would ask at the desk. Not whether you can afford the payment. If the window sticker said $393,482, would you still walk in? Because that is the sticker. It is just written in a currency nobody prints 30 years out.